The tariff wars are on pause, at least for now, after the art of the deal wins the day. Trudeau, who's fighting for Canadians and who has their backs, has decided to bend to every single one of Donald Trump's demands, of course. Considering what our leaders were planning in response to the tariffs, this might be a good thing after all. As we dive into a recent interview with journalist Samuel Cooper, there might be something else going on altogether with Trump and his tariffs. So, let's recap. Federal Parliament, dissolved. Ontario Parliament, dissolved. Tariffs, dissolved for now. The strength of our Canadian economy and the well-being of the Canadian citizens, by and large, well, yeah, you basically get the idea. It's February 7th. I'm Andrew DeBartolo. That's Matt Hallick. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Hey, friends. Welcome back to Liberty Dispatch, where we bring you conservative Canadian news and analysis from an unapologetically Christian perspective. Make sure you like and subscribe to our Rumble and YouTube channels. We see the comments, we see the interaction, we love all that. Be sure to like where you listen, and if you like what we do, you know what to do. So also make sure that you go over to our Substack. That's where you can get all things Liberty Dispatch. So go over to ldcanada.substack.com. Do consider, while you're over there, becoming a paid subscriber and supporting the work that we do. That way we can stay on the scene, stay relevant, bring you all the news and analysis that you've grown to love, because I think we're a necessary voice in this moment in Canada, and you're just not going to get what we bring you anywhere else. So also be sure to go over to our Substack, ldcanada.substack.com, because that's where you have full access to everything that we do.
And that's where, as a paid subscriber, you're going to get full access to everything that we do, because we got a bunch of interviews, bunch of interviews that we're dropping soon, and some of them are going to be free and available for everyone to watch all of them. Yeah. But most of the interviews we do, because it's just an additional thing where we're not taking anything away. We're adding the news brief, we're adding our written content, we're keeping our show. But these additional interviews that we do, we're going to put those behind a little itty bit of a paywall and say, if you want full access to all the interview content, you have to become a monthly or annual subscriber, $10 a month, $100 a year, and then you'll get everything.
Yeah, and I gotta say, though it's not going to be exclusive, because you'll still be able to get the news brief on just a normal podcast channel, what is exclusive is if you're signing up, at least as an email subscriber, to our mailing list, is you're going to get the news articles curated for you. So if you want to dive into them, it's just laid out really nicely. It looks great in the Substack email. So definitely, even if you're not going to become a paid Substack subscriber, at least go over there, give us your email. You'll get that curated in your inbox, and that'll give you a lot of news throughout the week. And our hope is that as we have more of you subscribe, we can grow it bigger. We can give you more updates as the week goes on, the news that is really what you want to know when you want to know it. So be sure to do that. As you said, Andrew, we have some great content coming up as far as interviews. We have Craig Klein from Sales Nexus, our man Jonathan Wellham from Rocklinc. We have John Carpe from JCCF. They've had some big time cases that we've brought for our show for people's attentions. So it's going to be great to talk to John. We have Dr. Joe Boot, which is always amazing. Brother Andrew Sandlin. We have a lot of guys coming on that you're going to want to be able to hear our extended discussions with them. And you won't be able to hear that if you do not subscribe over at ldcanada.substack.com. So go over there today. It's, if I do so say, Andrew, it looks fantastic. It everything you need from us is over there, including written content from you that you don't want to sleep on. You are a good writer, so definitely want to go over to ldcanada.substack.com.
Yeah, you don't want to make it hard for yourself, especially when it's so hard to find electrolyte drinks or protein
Yes.
shakes or anti-inflammatories that enhance your workout without defeating their point, because they're going to fill you with sugar, chemicals, fillers, and food dyes. By the way, a lot of those food dyes are made from ground up bugs. It's kind of gross. So that's why you need to try Plexus. Supplements with the highest quality, all natural ingredients that not only avoid the garbage, but support your gut. Whether flushing toxins or restoring nutrients, you'll see a tangible difference. Whether you're prepping for a marathon or the day-to-day demands that often feel like a marathon themselves, these products are the clean, nutritional fuel that you can trust. So if you're looking to enhance your health, you can email healthandliberty@proton.me, and our friends will be happy to help you decide whether this is a good fit for you and even hook you up with a discount, answer all of your questions. Email healthandliberty@proton.me, and a representative will answer your questions, help you out with everything, and get you set up on your health journey. The story this week, of course, is the Orange Man, Donald Trump. He has paused his proposed 25. He's breaking minds. Big Eva is losing itself. It's been quite, I mean, social media has been wild. So the proposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, they are paused after the leaders of these two countries decided they were going to stop acting. Yeah. Well, so we paused them after they decided they were going to stop acting tough and realize that they're actually dealing with a wealthy, powerful country and leader, like a man. Yeah. So they realized we have to stop acting like men because we're not men. So,
Donald won a chicken. We know who's the winner of chicken.
Yes. Yeah. Well, which makes sense. He kind of has a little bit of a chicken swagger about him. So
great mug, by the way.
Yeah, it is a great mug.
Shout
out
to Resistance Coffee. You're wearing the sweater. We got a great mug. There you go.
ResistanceCoffee.com.
Check it out.
Make sure promo code Liberty10 gets you 10% off their stuff.
What's wrong with you? Go buy their coffee.
I know. So the Associated Press released this on February 3rd. Quote, U.S. President Donald Trump and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. That sounds like a real weird name for a Mexican president. Anyways, Claudia Sheinbaum put their planned tariffs on hold Monday for a month to give time for further negotiations. And Mexico said it planned to deploy 10,000 members of its National Guard to address drug trafficking. The U.S. and Mexican leaders announced the pause after what Trump described on social media as a very friendly conversation, which was probably him forcing them to bend to his will. And he said he looked forward to upcoming talks, close quote. So let me kind of translate that for you. In other words, Trump flexes on Mexico, okay? Mm-hmm. Mexico acts all tough, and then Mexico folds like a piece of paper, and they agree to what Trump wants, okay? Now, that's the art of the deal.
It would have just been easier to just
it would have. But yeah, it would have. Now, Canada was still acting tough, of course. They were threatening all kinds of hissy fits, some we covered, and we're going to look in a moment at what Doug... I can't even think of an adjective to describe him. Just Doug Trudeau's lapdog Ford and what he was proposing. Now, despite every Canadian politician saying that they would bite back with dollar-for-dollar tariffs, the Canadian Pravda Corporation, formerly known as the CBC, now known as the CPC, I'm sure, through tears and a soy-non-fat peppermint mocha, had to release this story, which is delicious. Quote, U.S. President Donald Trump dropped his plan to levy tariffs on Canada for at least 30 days after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made a series of commitments on Monday to improve border security. Series of commitments is euphemism for he was bent over and he had no choice. Okay. To get Trump to shelve his pushing tariffs, Trudeau told him Canada is pressing ahead with a previously announced $1.3 billion border security plan that includes reinforcing the 49th parallel with new choppers, technology, and personnel, and stepping up its coordination with American officials to crack down on Trump's stated priorities, illegal drugs and migrants. Trudeau said, all told, there will be 10,000 frontline personnel working along the border as part of a push to make it safer. The Prime Minister also made a series of new commitments to Trump, including a promise to appoint a new fentanyl czar, and he promised to list Mexican cartels, the top purveyors of fentanyl and other drugs in Canada and the U.S. as terrorists under Canadian law. Trudeau said Canada is launching a Canada-U.S. joint strike force that will be tasked with combating organized crime and money laundering, and he's kicking in $200 million in funding to get it off the ground, close quote. So
Ooh.
Trump makes all the demands, this. Even though someone mentioned this on social media, Trudeau would never come up with the idea of a fentanyl czar.
Oh,
Trump probably told him, yeah, so Trump didn't.
This is what
Trump,
you're going to do, kid.
Yeah, and you're going to call him a fentanyl czar because I say you are, right? You're going to use that language, phrase. But... Yeah, you're going to use that language, Justin. So there we go. Crisis avoided, kind of, maybe, for a bit.
Well, it's certainly an armistice, right? A temporary peace. We'll see what happens. But Andrew, the post-millennial also had this to say in regards to the tariff war that wasn't. Trump has made drug trafficking a central issue in his trade and border policies, but U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the CBP, data paints a more nuanced picture. According to Forbes, CBP apprehended 23,720 people illegally crossing the U.S.-Canada border in fiscal year 2024, just 1.5% of all nationwide Border Patrol apprehensions. In contrast, the U.S.-Mexico border saw more than 1.5 million apprehensions in the same time period. Here is exactly what Trudeau posted to X, and I'm sure while he did so while listening to emo music and holding a stuffy, Andrew, but nevertheless.
Probably because he's Canadian, he was probably listening to Simple Plan.
Yeah. Oh, that's
right?
That's a sore excuse for emo music.
And nothing lasts forever. I'm sorry, it can't be perfect. That's what he was listening to as he was posting this. I can picture now.
You know,
with
way
that
too
big
much Simple Plan.
Oh, come on! I was in high school in the late '90s, early 2000s. Anyways, so don't judge me. Read the post. Read what Justin said.
Okay. Here's what our right honorable prime minister had to say. I just had a good call with President Trump, Trudeau wrote. Apparently Hitler. He had a good call with Hitler. Anyways, Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. So,
you think Trump wrote that tweet?
No. I think he wrote the tweet, but certainly Donald Trump gave him the list of demands and he came to the table. And this is much more specific, right? When Trudeau was getting on his high horse, you know, as we were leading up to the implementation of the tariffs and everything, you see that he spoke in very vague general. We're already doing something, no specifics on how we're going to secure the border. But that's what Trump was able to get out of him with deploying the stick method. And I can't help but think, Andrew, that he really accomplished multiple things here, right? In one fell swoop with this threat that he made Mexico and Canada come to the table to do their part at securing the border. Because that's first and foremost, I think, on the list of things that Donald Trump wants to accomplish in his first 100 days. Let's get this border secure. let's get the Canadians and the Mexicans doing their part to secure the border. And then this is going to set the table for the coming negotiations for NAFTA and everything like that. So I think Donald Trump has truly, in this case, played 4D chess. I know a lot of people talked about that in his first term, I think sometimes with very little evidence. But what you do see here is that out of the gate, from go, Donald Trump and his team has been ready in a way that they've taken a shock and awe approach that the world has not been ready for. And it's funny to me, Andrew, because I saw so many posts from Canada's political and financial elites, and every single one, Andrew, is like, he doesn't really care about the border. He doesn't really care about fentanyl. But it's funny to me that was the thing that got him to pause. If he didn't really care about it, why would that be the thing that he demands from both Mexico and Canada that actually brings a temporary armistice?
Here's why they said that. Because they don't care about it. And in their mind, why would anyone care about it? Yeah, why would anyone care about it? Who cares about the border? Let the drugs flow. Let our own citizens die. That's so that in their mind they couldn't imagine. They couldn't imagine anything other, right? So, and we're gonna see later in the episode when we play clips from the interview with Samuel Cooper, where actually they were making a ton of money. As they're laundering money for the CCP through casinos and through real estate, and seeing this massive amount of fentanyl come in. But we don't want to spoil that, because that's a spicy interview. But I wonder, when I think about Canada and Mexico, this is kind of in jest here, but I wonder if Trump on his computer has a folder where he has all of his dealings with Canada and Mexico. And if I were him, I would just call it maple jalapeno wings. That's what I do. And what I would do is every time I got Canada and Mexico to bend to my will, I would order the White House chef to make me some maple jalapeno wings every time in celebration.
Yeah, man.
So President Trump,
that sounds good.
President Trump, if you're listening to this episode, I would encourage you
invite
to
us down.
Yeah, and I will
one of these.
I will make you some maple jalapeno wings. I'll sub up my maple sriracha recipe.
Andrew?
Very good. Yeah.
Okay. I mess around in the kitchen too. Yeah.
All our wing sauces are from scratch, so I'll sub out the maple sriracha that I make for a maple jalapeno, which would be I should try that anyway. So
yes,
but
next show we're gonna both make our own maple jalapenos, and we'll just with sticky hands.
We'll be eating wings. Yeah,
yes. That has to be the extra content that we put behind the paywall.
It will be the highest viewed video we've ever made, ever.
Okay. Anyways, that was a bad sound. Sorry, everybody listening. Anyways, the point is, it was much ado about nothing. Our last episode is the trade wars begin. This episode will be the trade wars end, because that's how quick it came and went in a matter of hours. But obviously, the looming threat still exists. Trump, despite getting what he wanted,
he only said 30 days, right? He said for 30 days.
30 days, and that's nothing. It goes like that. So it's absolutely, it's some great work by Donald Trump, and we'll see where it kind of heads to. But we'll touch on it later in the program. But I think there's, not only did he accomplish those couple things right off the bat, but I think there's more to it that just goes to show that they're ready to go, and they were ready to come in with that shock and awe strategy.
Inflation through the roof.
Grocery prices up 11% year over year.
Censorship of dissident voices. Freezing of bank accounts.
Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Digital surveillance and communism spreading.
What do we want? Basic
With the basic income, and I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
The government is on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're coming for your money.
Is Canada's federal debt increasing in real time, now surpassing $1.2 trillion. This debt is draining taxpayer dollars, with interest alone costing $54 billion this year.
It's time to break free and start saving in money they can't take from you. Since 2013, the folks at Bull Bitcoin have one mission: destroy central banking. Bull Bitcoin is the most trusted Bitcoin company in Canada. They empower you to buy, sell, and pay bills with Bitcoin. They are 100% non-custodial, which means that you always maintain full control over your Bitcoin, allowing you to reclaim your financial sovereignty and secure your wealth for the future. Their customer support will assist you throughout the whole process, helping you get your hands on the hardest money ever created. Escape their financial gulag, click on the link below, and start buying Bitcoin today and get a $20 bonus as a listener of Liberty Dispatch.
Man, I'm fired up. Let's go.
Shout out to the guys at Bull Bitcoin. So we did some recording. They put that sweet, they put some sweet, put a sweet ad together with some music and
they made you even sound cool. So
they made, and that's difficult to do.
Order.
Okay?
Yeah, Andrew, I do have to, it's gonna get me every time. But what's with the report? What's with the female reporter, newscaster voice? It's playing during the Canadian taxpayer, talking about the it's to me it's so affected. It's hard to take it seriously. But it's like the same newscaster lady voice that everybody employs. I don't know why they do it, but
yeah. Well, I mean,
industry standard, I guess. I don't know.
They're going for the whole mommy state thing, I guess. I don't know. The voice of mom to make you feel comfortable. Who knows?
My mom does not talk like that.
No.
Anyways,
no. My mom could never be a newscaster. That would be a frightening thing. I don't want to think about that.
One time, maybe we should get our moms to do the programs for us.
No, that is vetoed right away before it happens. So, Matt, it appears, as we've said, that for now, at least, we've avoided what could have been a trade war, tariff war that would have been full of stupid decisions from our elected officials, lots of wasteful spending, and actually printing more money to bail us out of bad decisions. Now,
literally, they promised that.
None were so foolish as don't teach me how to Doug Ford. I don't want to learn how to Dougie from Doug Ford. Who, by the way,
you wish you could forget Dougie.
I wish I could forget Dougie. Who, by the way, alongside with his new bestie Justin Trudeau, has also dissolved provincial parliament, to ruin Ontario just a little bit more before he prepares to win another election, whereby he will ruin Ontario a whole lot more. So it's just a temporary making Ontario worse, so that after he wins, he can make Ontario worse for at least another 4 years. So,
but have you seen the Canada's Not for Sale hats though?
I have seen those hats.
Have you seen those?
Yeah. Now, I have seen those, and my guess would be the same factory that produced those hats is the same factory that produced all of the COVID stickers that said "Don't stand here 6 feet away." Oh, by the way, Doug Ford has so much investment and ownership of those factories, which is why his net worth went from $3 million to $50 million during the pandemic. So, of course, Canada's not for sale.
Are you insinuating, Andrew, that Doug Ford is a corrupt political actor?
That I am more than insinuating it. It's tattooed on my body, and I'm not going to show you right now. That's how clear I am about this. So, what exactly was "Don't Teach Me How to Doug Ford" planning to do? Well, this is from the Globe and Mail. Now, by the way, I'll say this. If you click on the link that's in the description, it won't take you to what I'm about to read you. And the reason is these initial stories, so the next two by the Globe and Mail, there's another one as well a little bit further on, they initially posted these stories before an agreement was reached with Canada and the U.S. So if you click on these links, you'll see, with the tariffs pause, blah, blah, blah. But the only way you can find these stories is if you go to the Wayback Machine. So I'm just kind of, it's just really weird that you have to search the Internet Archives to find this story, which proves, by the way, that what we're dealing with is not the free press. We're dealing with the Ministry of Truth from 1984, and they actually attempted to memory hold this story and gaslight all of us to forget just what kind of premier we have in this country. So, whoopsie for the Globe and Mail, because the internet is forever. But this is the story that no longer exists unless you search archives. Quote, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said Monday he was canceling a $100 million provincial contract for rural satellite internet with Starlink, a company controlled by billionaire Elon Musk, a key supporter of U.S. President Donald Trump. Quote, Ontario won't do business with people hell-bent on destroying our economy, Mr. Ford said in a statement issued by his Progressive Conservative Party re-election campaign. I just have to say, they have no problem doing business with people that will destroy our economy. Just look at the last 5 years. Their whole play in COVID was let's destroy the economy.
Justin Trudeau. How could anybody do a better job at destroying our economy than Justin Trudeau?
As Bugs Bunny used to say, what a maroon. What a maroon.
Can they just drop the conservative in their party title? Can they just be the progressive? Come out with it, Doug.
They can't,
we know where your heart is.
Here's why. This is going to sting a little bit. Because all of those undiscerning and foolish Christians wouldn't vote for them if they dropped the conservative. But they can still bank on those undiscerning votes from people who don't actually understand what they're doing by giving their votes over to Satan and his pawns. So I know that hurts a little bit, but nevertheless.
Tell us what you really think, Andrew.
So Mr. Ford also said he was banning all U.S. companies from bidding on Ontario government contracts until the 25% U.S. tariff on Canadian goods being imposed on Tuesday are removed. He said U.S.-based businesses will now lose out on tens of millions of dollars in new revenues, Ford said. They only have President Trump to blame, close quote. Now, so there's a saying, and I'm not going to say it in Italian, but there's a saying in Italian, which is you bite your nose to spite your own face. Right, my mom used to say that to me a lot growing up. You bite your nose to spite your own face, and so here you have. Okay, so what about these Ontarians who live in rural parts of the province who don't have access to good internet? Well, guess what? Now you don't have any access. Now you're going to have to go with Cogeco running one crappy line all the way up in the middle of Timbuktu, Ontario. So you get no internet. Sorry, you're punished. It's just brutal.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mention that because, like, a lot of the guys that I have business dealings with, you included, are from Ontario, and I'm constantly surprised at how bad the internet is in Ontario. And like 5G cover, like you'd imagine, like if anywhere in Canada was going to be outfitted for amazing 5G, like wireless, everything, Toronto would be it, especially southern Ontario. But it's not the case. There's so many bad zones.
If you remember last episode, Ontario is the most indebted sub-sovereign in the world. Mm-hmm. Ontario is so full of red tape and legislative and it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Mm-hmm. So Ontario, I'm not leaving because this is where all the action is. But but it's a bad scene here. So anyways, that's the article that doesn't exist unless you look it up in the archives. That's what Doug Ford was proposing.
Yeah, so it's a very strange strategy Doug's implementing. He's like, okay,
going to implement, yeah.
Well, but I'm just saying, like, he's cozying up to Justin Trudeau, and he's walking in lockstep with Trudeau throughout this whole process. A literally disgraced, lame duck prime minister who's even despised by his own parties and MPs. That's the guy he's being allies with, and not the extremely popular, like unanimous, like strongly elected with a huge mandate in the States, Donald Trump.
Because do you know who's helped Doug Ford increase? You know who's helped Doug Ford increase his net value from $3 million to $50 million? And you know who continues to fund the province of Ontario with copious amounts of federal tax dollars. It's his daddy, Justin Trudeau. It's pretty gross, but
yeah, no, it's a weird move, and I think it does tell you, like, Ontario taxpayers and Ontario voters, are you getting the message that Doug Ford is given the choice between linking arms with Danielle Smith in Alberta and Donald Trump in the United States of America? He's choosing Justin Trudeau as his favorite actor. But it is crazy, Andrew, because the amazing part is so Doug rips up the contract with Starlink in light of the tariffs, none of which are there's no indicators that Elon Musk has anything to do with that. So this is just completely punitive. And who gets damaged by that? It's not Doug Ford. Doug Ford's got good internet. I assure you that. It's everyone else in Ontario, right?
Yeah, people in rural Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah, so great internet for all Canadians, no matter where they live. Well, that would have been the casualty, and it could have been canceled if Doug had his way, because he's not acting wisely but foolishly, and I'm just shocked by it. But I'm glad you brought it before our attention. But you know what else could have actually been canceled? Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey. And this was not only Ontario specific, but throughout the whole nation. But let's go to the Post-Millennials article here. Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced that the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, the LCBO, will remove all U.S.-made liquor from its shelves starting Tuesday, following U.S. President Donald Trump's implementation of steep tariffs on Canadian goods. Ford emphasized the economic impact of the decision in a post on X, writing, "Every year, LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of American wine, beer, spirits, and seltzers. Not anymore," he added. Starting Tuesday, we're removing American products from LCBO shelves. As the only wholesaler of alcohol in the province, they have a monopoly, everybody. So it's weird. It's weird that socialists hate monopoly unless if it's a state monopoly. Anyways, LCBO will also remove American products from its catalog, so other Ontario-based restaurants and retailers can't order to restock U.S. products as well. Something that only somebody that has a monopoly can do, obviously. As part of Ontario's response strategy to the imposed U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods, the government of Ontario has directed the LCBO to indefinitely stop all sales of U.S. alcohol products in our stores and online, and to stop wholesale sales of U.S. products to restaurants, bars, grocery, and other retailers no later than February 4, 2025, an LCBO spokesperson told the CTV News.
Think of the situation. So you're in the middle of, you're somewhere out in Lanark, Frontenac County, in just west of Ottawa. There's nothing up there. It's sticks. You're in the sticks, okay? You're on your acres, and you're relying on Starlink to be able to watch our show.
Yes,
and then
obviously.
Your internet gets canceled.
Priority.
Your internet gets canceled. And so I don't support this, and I don't approve of this, but in order to deal with your sorrows, you drive to the nearest LCBO because you want to have a couple shots of Jack Daniels. You can't do that either. Thanks, Doug. That's all your fault. That's all. Yeah. That's all. That's what Doug's done.
It was super interesting though, because leading up to it, Andrew, it was amazing. We're gonna really show those Americans. We're gonna stop buying their alcohol, and that was like, we're Team Canada. Like, let's throw on our Team Canada jerseys. Yeah. Trudeau came out with a press conference, and all the people were I think Chow did the same thing. They're all wearing like Team Canada Olympic gear. It's like, we're Team Canada. Like, let's get together. And like Trudeau relishes this moment, right? Like, he's got the full on drama teacher acting going. And he's like, he's bringing in references from all these places in Canada where he hates every single person that's ever been there, but he's just using it for emotional appeal. And he's just living in this moment. He's like, I'm a lame duck prime minister, but maybe I'll change the course of human history.
You know what he was thinking in his mind? He was thinking, I was born to play this role. That's what he was thinking.
Yeah, but it turns out he was born to play the role of getting bent over. That's the role that he was actually fit for.
Hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband. So
it's late.
We avoided the LCBO not selling American liquor. We avoided the Starlink cancellation. We also avoided a chance for our Sikh socialist, Jagmeet Singh, to further ruin
down on the communism.
Yep, we avoided a chance for him to further ruin our economy by printing more money. So this is from the CPC. Again, that is the Canadian Pravda Corporation, formerly known as the CBC. Quote, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said Tuesday he's open to working with the Liberal government to pass relief measures for workers if U.S. President Donald Trump moves ahead with devastating tariffs on Canadian goods. Singh has said for weeks that he and his MPs will vote to bring down the government and send Canadians to an election at the earliest opportunity when Parliament reconvenes after prorogation in March. Singh said that commitment still stands, but he opened the door to propping up the Liberals long enough to pass relief legislation. What a spineless, unprincipled socialist, which they all are. If the Liberal government needs a partner to get this bill through Parliament to help rescue a tariff-battered economy, Singh is willing to listen to what Ottawa is proposing.
This is orgiastic, right? Like, this is orgiastic to these people. Like, jumping government daddy coming to the rescue of our idiot peon citizens who can't provide for themselves. This is why they're there. They're relishing in this moment. This is a great, I can go on TV in a Team Canada jersey and give a real good speech.
At least they were for a couple days.
A bunch of diarrhea.
At least they were for a couple days before Trudeau gave in, and now they all have a big egg on their face. Right?
Yeah.
Like
we just got to get them all mega hats and.
But you know what though? This is not. It's funny you bring up that point because this is why having the legacy media bought and paid for is helpful because or like we've seen how
helpful to who, like for Justin,
for them. Oh yeah, for them it's helpful for them, and also how you can change links to stories and redact them and replace them without anyone know that they actually exist, and people don't know what actually happened. So clearly, the media is going to play this a certain way. The legacy media, and the Globe and Mail switched the story around. So did the CPC. So they just they retconned the stories in order to avoid it. But we've seen this play, right? So Jagmeet Singh tells Justin Trudeau. So Justin Trudeau invokes the War Measures Act. Jagmeet Singh gives full approval. We need it. This is exactly what's needed. And then a week later, Justin Trudeau undoes what he does. And Jagmeet Singh, who is saying, Canada's falling apart, we need it to save us, looks like a fool. But that was it. Let's just move on. So it's the same thing here. They were all, we are going to fight. We are Canadians, and we're gonna go down there, we're gonna teach those Americans a thing or two about how to mess with our country there, and that's with them for like a day, and then all of a sudden Trudeau says, oh well, we're gonna do whatever Trump wants, but you don't have the opportunity to see them as fools because with the exception of people like us and other outlets, few and far between, it's like it never happened. So if you just scour legacy media today, it's like that didn't happen. In fact, you won't even find the stories on their websites anymore. That's to me, that's real. Like that's how much they lean into their propaganda arm to go to bat for them, to make them look as good as possible and try to make us forget what actually happened.
Yeah, there's an asymmetry on how they deal with things, right? Because instead of giving commentary on just how foolish all these idiots looked. All they're going to bring you is the just straight up news. Like that when their guys fail, they just kind of just put it straight down the middle. But when, Pierre Poilievre says something in a speech on the trail, they're going to dissect that to the nth degree and going to bring in 57 different people on a panel to talk about.
Half of them are
our party spokespersons.
Well, I was going to say half of them are two-spirited and are 1/32nd.
Well, diversity is our strength. Trudeau said that in his speech. He also said, before we move on, we didn't play the speech because there's only so much we can listen to him in back-to-back shows. But he also said, we're all in this together. Like, he literally used that line. Dude, really? Really? Are you serious? Like, everybody's like, we're doomed.
Well, we may have to. We may have to. We don't have the time to do this tonight, but Mark Carney did a press conference, I think yesterday or the day before, and he said in this press conference. So this might come out next week's episode, or certainly I'm going to write about it, or maybe you know what, we should do a reaction video to that. I think this would be a great reaction video. In the press conference, he said the old order of the world is gone, a new order is emerging. And it's better. So Mark Carney basically said there is a new world order that is emerging that will be better. Now, when I hear new world order, I'm not thinking get my rapture pack ready and start connecting lines and send money over to Israel. But that is the language, that is the overt language of the globalists, the WEF, the UN. Conspiracy. This is their thing. Yeah. So, so we're going to talk about
this.
Wild.
This is like the post-war consensus, if that term has any meaning, was this kind of new world order that you can trace from the League of Nations and Woodrow Wilson's insanity all the way through the UN. And this is the globalist new world order that we've been promised, since at least the early 20th century, if not, it definitely predates that. But the funny thing is we've been on the precipice of that for a long time, and it's just a horrible, no good, very bad plan that just destroys every nation it goes into. But then they always got to say, well, we're just on the precipice. If we could socialism just a little bit harder, Andrew, this new world order would magically appear and we'd all
that's
be
with everything too. That's with social justice wokeism. It's always it's reconciliation and forgiveness is always just one step ahead. We're just that much closer
because
they're
environmentalists.
But we'll never get there.
And I hesitate to use that term, but that's a term that Rushdoony uses. They're environmentalists in the sense that they think man's issues, man's problems are his environment. So they're always just like, if we can manipulate the situations and the circumstances and the environment surrounding man just a little bit more, stay with us just a little bit more while we get out our manipulation devices, and then man will be in a setting to make him perfect. But if you go all in on that, you're in for a world of hurt, because man's problems stem from the heart of the heart. The heart of the human problem is the problem of the human heart. And if you go all in on the idea that somehow it's man's environment that is the problem, that's what leads to all the most insane, reckless, utopian ideas that we've ever seen. And it's the total essence of an anti-gospel. It's horrible. It's a disaster. But that's the new world that they think. We just have to manipulate the environment a little bit more and we'll be fine. Bad. It's bad. Yeah.
Financial services in Canada are dominated by the big banks and large multinationals. If you think about it, I mean, it makes sense. The elites don't want you to think outside the box because that might provide you with greater financial freedom and make you less dependent on the state. We all need to say no to big government, no to big financial institutions, and work with independent companies like Rocklinc to build customized portfolios based on your goals. They also build financial plans consistent with your values. Talk to our friends at Rocklinc Investment Partners. Rocklink is a firm that shares your Christian values and wants to help you secure your financial independence. Give them a call at 905-631-5462 or email them at info@rocklink.com. That's Rocklink with the C, info@rocklink.com. I really can't say enough good things about the brothers over at Rocklink. I actually, yesterday, the last couple of days, I've been having some back and forth conversations with Jacob at Rocklink, who helps with the management of our investments, stuff for our kids, stuff for us as well. And it was just great access, great conversation, back and forth, really helpful, answering questions, making sense of what to do, best course of action with moving some stuff around and trying to make some decisions for our family. I just found like it's, and all at the same time, we understand that the way we're supposed to handle our wealth, and Jacob gets this, and the guys at Rocklinc get this, is it's not just about most amount of money savings. It's about taking dominion and stewarding what God's given us for me, my kids, and for their kids. Like, this is the perspective that you get when you're talking about your wealth management, is they want you to honor the Lord and build his kingdom and wisely provide for your kids and grandkids. You're not going to get that anywhere else, anywhere else in Canada. No. You need to connect with the brothers over at Rocklinc.
I cannot wait for the discussion that we had with Jonathan Wellham about a lot of the stuff that we talk about on today's program, but his knowledge about economics is just that much beyond where we can go. So he can really go in the depth on helping us understand and digest the things that are going on.
Do you know that Jonathan has a life-size cutout of Donald Trump?
Does he?
I've been to his house before. I have pictures on my phone of him and I standing together. Yeah, of Wellham and I.
These hats, then.
A picture with Donald Trump it's a life-size cutout of Donald Trump in his house. Is something else.
No, it's funny, man. There's a lot of bad takes about Trump out there, even within our own circles. But yeah, Jonathan and the guys over at Rocklinc, they're one of a kind. They're the best in the business. So you have to go over there, and you're not going to want to sleep on that interview, because I truly think we really had a wonderful discussion with Jonathan, and you can look forward to that coming out, because we're going to touch on the depth of the Canadian problem and the very simple solutions that we can do to unlock Canada's economy and take steps towards making Canada great again. So you're definitely not going to want to miss that. Andrew, we do have one last story left.
Well, last episode we mentioned and we played clips of a podcast from Brian Lilly. Mm-hmm. He had a few economists on, and they were discussing what they believed is the real reason Donald Trump was bringing the tariff threat. And they'd reference a paper written by Stephen Marin, who happens to be a financial advisor to the White House, who wrote this paper. So he has Trump's ear. And what they basically proposed with this was this tariff threat, and really his dealings with Canada and the world was just a small part in a much larger play to reestablish the United States in the world, right? To restructure the global economy, and to stop subsidizing and doing more than their fair share on the world stage. And I'd recommend you if you didn't listen to last week's episode, go listen to it. Follow the links as well to go and actually listen to the podcast. It's only about an hour. It's well worth your listen. So that's what they proposed. There was good stuff there. Now this week, Matt, you came across an interview you sent to me, and we've been talking about it. With that offers another reason.
Our friend of the show, Scott Masson, he shared this.
podcast. We need to get him on. We have to have an interview with him. I'm going to email him tomorrow. Okay, so let's go. This interview offers another reason behind what Trump is doing, like really what he seeks to accomplish in Canada as it relates to the United States. And so we wanted to watch a portion of it. We've kind of the longer interview,
curated some clips.
We've 4 clips, shorter clips, about 90 seconds each, and we want to spend the rest of the time discussing these clips and the implications, and basically, can it fit together, right? So what you have these economists proposing, is there a way that these fit together? Are they mutually exclusive? Are they opposing? Or is it both of them together? We want to explore that. And so this is the interview with investigative journalist Samuel Cooper.
So you could say that, for 10 years, I've been researching the thesis that Canada has become a node of essentially Chinese infiltration and organized crime activity, especially in Vancouver. And this was hard for people to believe, but Vancouver has become a production hub for China and a transshipment hub for fentanyl precursors, to the point where it's now established, even though I was well ahead of the curve in writing up this thesis, that Canada is a fentanyl exporter nation. And so this gets to what Donald Trump is saying. It's hard for many people to believe that, Canada could be put in the same category as Mexico in terms of endangering the United States with fentanyl, with illegal immigration and human trafficking. But my research has shown that indeed this is the fear and concern of U.S. intelligence community, U.S. military and law enforcement, really for decades, that Canada's weak enforcement against transnational crime, weak control of borders, has allowed international organized crime with linkages to hostile states, most specifically China, but also Iran, Middle Eastern states that are not friends of the United States, have set up very strongly in Canada. So I do think that as a Canadian, I have to say, I'm not pleased with Donald Trump's rhetoric. I think there's a lot of the art of the deal going on when he's trolling and saying you're going to be the 51st state. But I do say that there's very deep concerns that Canada is being used by China in a very sophisticated economic and really criminal way. I do think that's correct.
Yeah, so that is a very, very, very interesting factor, right? Because in the interviews and the press conferences that Trudeau was having, they kept, banging on the drum, less than 1% of fentanyl is coming into the United States through Canada, which is maybe through the northern border, I should say, compared to the southern, which is maybe not the best comparison given the fact that they've basically had an open border in the south. And it's basically the border has been run by Mexican drug cartels for last 3-4 years. But this is a very, very interesting point by Cooper, because what he's saying is it's actually these transnational kind of crime syndicates that are using Canada as a staging post and a money launderer to buy the precursors for fentanyl that then they make in other nations around the world or ship to China, whatever, ship to Mexico, and then they smuggle them up through that way. So it's like Canada's the laundromat and China and Mexico are the production facilities. And that working in conjunction has led to this massive fentanyl issue in, around the world, but especially in the United States of America, to the tune of they're losing literally what was 100,000, 70,000 people.
100,000 people a year dying from fentanyl overdoses in the States.
Yeah, shocking. That's shocking. That's I think people were saying it's more than the entire casualties in Vietnam every single year over year. And the amazing part is Canadians are like, oh, this can't be the real reason he's doing this, because fentanyl deaths, they're going down. And it's yeah, over the last 3 months when they were at 100,000, now they're only 80,000. Though that's
well, I'm glad you brought up
market improvement.
I'm glad you brought up the 1% thing, because even if, so let's assume it's accurate that 1% of the fentanyl coming into the United States directly comes from the 49th parallel. Let's just assume that.
Yeah.
Only 1% of all the fentanyl coming into the United States is coming through the Canada-US border. If it is the precursors are being shipped from China to Canada and then processed on the West Coast, and then shipped from the West Coast down to Mexico and then brought in through Mexico, it doesn't really matter. That's a moot point. So who cares where it comes from as long as it gets into the States. Yeah. And that's the point. And so what Cooper is intimating here is that Donald Trump is thinking, you are a big player in the fentanyl production distribution racket, and we can't be friends if you will continue to allow a system that kills 100,000 of our people each year. We can't be friendly to one another. And to be honest, that is a totally fair thing to say to what's supposed to be a reasonable, generous trade partner.
And then you add the other wrinkle into it that Cooper was getting into, right? It's not only that they're part of this fentanyl, syndicate, this fentanyl trade and production route, right? They're also engaged, whether it's willingly, thoughtfully, or just through insanely lax enforcement. They're also engaging with known enemies of the United States of America and their sovereignty and their interests in the world. And we're their direct northern border. So if you have hostile drug syndicates at the southern border, and I mean, we know for a fact, it's a documented fact from CSIS, we literally have, they won't use the word traitor, but we have members of parliament who are bought and paid for, who are Chinese agents, okay, in Canadian Parliament. China and Iran and so many hostile actors are setting up shop in the northern, on the northern border. As the United States of America, a huge part of this, it's not just shoring up your own borders as quickly as possible. It has to be paring back these enemies of yours across the world in your Western hemisphere, right? The Americans, and this is, I think, behind what Donald's doing, is he's reestablishing himself in the United States of America as the big dog in the Western hemisphere. And if you're going to mess around, you're going to find out.
Okay,
that's
next clip.
You're dealing with.
Massive inflows of funds, mysterious money, mostly from China and Hong Kong, had about a 30% influence each year on Vancouver's real estate market. And this was strange because, as everyone knows, China has communist capital control. So this was illegitimate money at scale into Vancouver homes, just causing prices to skyrocket. And to cut to the chase, I discovered that Canadian regulated casinos, first and foremost, currency shops, and real estate development were being used at scale for Chinese money launderers. It's called the Vancouver model of money laundering. And as I unwound and broke that story, 2017, it becomes front page news of how BC government casinos are used in this money laundering model. And to get, to the end of the story, before filling in all the blanks, eventually I learned that Chinese state-sponsored, so we're talking about Chinese intelligence, Chinese military, was directly involved with these underground Chinese criminal networks that were facilitating this massive money laundering, which tied into fentanyl, cocaine, money moving around the world. As you know, the fentanyl precursors themselves are often not illegal. So China ships the precursors into the west coast of Mexico and the west coast of Canada, because we know that U.S. law enforcement is going to have a much stronger control on the American west coast. And so Vancouver is used for those precursor hubs, the precursors to come in. They're printed up in pill presses and super labs, they call them, factories in British Columbia, and shipped around the world. And the money collected from those sales, this is where these massive piles of warehouse drug cash, they're collected in Vancouver, and ultra wealthy businessmen, Chinese Communist Party officials, They call them whale gamblers, gangsters, fly into Vancouver. They take this drug cash, walk into casinos. The money is laundered and it goes back to these Chinese factories and the precursors come in again. That's the Vancouver model. And it works with the Mexican cartels as well.
That's intense, Andrew.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so think about it. I mean, we've covered this on the show as well. So now the Trudeau Fund receiving large amounts of money from Chinese companies and donations, and seeing the influence of CCP on elections and on our federal government, and Trudeau admiring the Chinese dictatorship, it would make sense that in order to be allowed to operate in a foreign country this way and to have this kind of access across the border, you're going to want to make sure that you incentivize the right people in the right positions of power and make sure that their daddy's funds grow. Oh, and also that your personal net worth, as in the case of Justin Trudeau, balloons up. And a lot of those are Chinese donations. So this all makes sense.
I have the number here. So the Trudeau Foundation was investigated for $200,000 donation that appears to come directly from the Chinese government, that sparked allegations of foreign interference. It was $200,000 from a couple different, or one donation of $200,000 for the Trudeau Foundation itself, and then $50,000 for the Pierre Elliott Trudeau, or for the statue of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, from a couple different Chinese billionaires with connections. Obviously, if you're a billionaire in China, you have direct connections to the Chinese Communist Party, no doubt. So that's what we do. That's documented. That's, you can see National Post, Toronto Star, The Star, all sorts of global news, all sorts of Canadian publications have documented this fact. That's indisputable, that this Chinese influence in Canadian politics is very real. You add in the fact that they have their own police stations, my word, set up in our country, and all this starts to make sense, right? All the
the lab in Winnipeg, the level 3 biolab in Winnipeg that might actually be the actual genesis of COVID-19. It went from Winnipeg to the United States and China, but it started in our country. Yeah, of course, it all does come together.
We have a massive biolab here, and right before COVID, not that much longer before, or that much before COVID, there was a lady who was directly connected to the CCP, who was sending viruses to the Wuhan virus laboratory.
Not just information, but sending actual biological material over to the
you get a little gain of function
Wuhan
in there, and there you go.
Virology. Yeah,
boom. But and that's the thing. They were like, "Wow, it's not the same as what she was sending." It's just add in the gain of function resource research that happens in Wuhan, and there you go. You have it.
Well, it's the exact same argument they made with the fentanyl. Oh, but it's not exactly the thing. Well, it doesn't matter if it's exactly the thing. If where it starts was intended to start there in order that it would become what it does at the end. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so this is the
COVID
thing.
Blew out of Winnipeg. It doesn't matter.
This is a big thing that people, I think, really need to clue into, because we've dealt with we've talked a lot about the consequences of the things that come downstream from a lot of this activity we're seeing, right? Soaring real estate prices. Well, that's a lot of to do with foreign investors who are laundering money into Canada in this Vancouver model. We have an opioid epidemic. Well, look no further than these crime syndicates, and all of this creates an environment of just lost public trust because of the corruption, because of all the bad stuff we're seeing. And it's this stuff that is like really, this is kind of that missing link. And to me, this, if Trump's officials and his intelligence knows this, then I have no doubt in my mind, this is the very thing that Donald Trump was going after in day one. So all the people who said he didn't really care about the border, he didn't really care about the fentanyl crisis. I think the fact that he's aware of this stuff going on proves that he is. That's not maybe his only motive, but it certainly was the driving motive, and it is certainly the thing that he wanted taken care of immediately. So it's really, really interesting stuff by Cooper.
In my book, I write about a donation that comes from a Vancouver-based tycoon who is a People's Liberation Army military veteran who my documented research connects to BC casino money laundering investigations. And I asked Mr. Trudeau and his staff, can you explain this donation, and does it not seem suspicious? And essentially, they give a boilerplate answer to the effect that the Liberal Party of Canada follows all relevant election financing rules. And, you know, in my book, I stress that the photographs of Mr. Trudeau with individuals that are documented officials, essentially, in China's foreign influence arm, which is the United Front, they're difficult to explain away. And I do think I have some inkling of feeling that the U.S. government is also concerned with those types of funding relationships Mr. Trudeau has. But to reiterate, I haven't had a response from Mr. Trudeau. I'll add this. Even a U.S. congressional report in 2023 now points to concerns of a major donation to Mr. Trudeau's foundation that reportedly came from a United Front official that was tasked by Beijing. Very suspicious. I reported on a letter from Marco Rubio.
Sorry, I accidentally hit that one there. You'd imagine, Andrew, that this is the type of journalism that the journalists would actually try and engage in doing. Because this is the type of like stuff that if you were in a real world where the Pulitzer Prize made sense and actually was real and not corrupt and staged.
He says at one point in the interview he used to write for Global and the Vancouver Sun, but he's gone independent.
They don't want to touch it. Yeah, they don't want to touch it because this brings up a lot of stuff that they don't want to think about because it shows the corruption of the same people that they cover up for each and every day. Let's get in the last video and then we can do some closing remarks and move on.
I reported on a letter from Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State, a few months ago. He wrote to Canada's Trade Minister, Mary Ng, and said, why is Canada a backdoor for slave-produced goods in Xinjiang that have been blocked by the United States and then rerouted through Canada, transshipped, and come and stopped again at the U.S. border? So that's not about fentanyl, but that is about a now senior Trump official telling Canada's trade minister, you're not doing anything to stop these bad goods from China, and you're hurting the United States. So I do believe that Trump's office at a high level is concerned about China. Why he hasn't directly said, what lower level officials that I talk to say that Canada triads that is Chinese organized crime in Toronto and Vancouver are command and control for the fentanyl money laundering of the type that was run through Toronto Dominion Bank. They're the bosses of Mexican cartel money laundering in Canada, and that's very strange. Mr. Trump hasn't said that yet, but what he did say the other day when reporters asked, are you just trying to, is this a ploy to get Canada to redo, its trade deal? And he said, no, there's massive fentanyl coming from Canada. And as you know, as everyone knows, that fentanyl originates in China.
I have a hypothesis to why he hasn't come out and just said some of this stuff. I think he's got that in his back pocket. I think he's got that in the back pocket in case he should have to engage in further discussions on tariffs and the like.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he knows exactly what's been going on and exactly the extent to which the Mexican government and the Canadian government have been turning a blind eye to all of this stuff going on, and potentially even their financial connections. I think he's got all that stuff and he's willing to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know
So
what you think about that, but
obviously there are some very intelligent people who, and some very intentional people that are working around Donald Trump that he has surrounded himself with. I think he is, at the very least in his cabinet, not brought any swamp creatures along for his second term. And so I think he has people around him who are truly concerned about American well-being and actually concerned about the prosperity and the success of the United States. And they've recognized that it appears that things that happen in Canada economically and with how we allow certain shady dealings affects them tremendously. And I think they're taking the necessary steps, both in Canada and in the global. And so this is why I asked the question before. I don't think that these things are mutually exclusive. It appears to be that both at home, as in sharing the same landmass, and abroad over large bodies of water, it appears that Trump is doing what he promised to do the best that he can, which is think of America first, establish the United States as an even greater economic and military power in the world, stop being taken advantage of in various ways. And in order to secure that, and in order to seek the well-being of the country, that means that he needs to tell his neighbors, you guys got to smarten up, and you need to do your part or we're going to have trouble. So if you have this level of intelligence and intentionality around him, it's almost certainly the case that he's probably not reacting. He's probably thinking a few moves ahead. And so he very well may have a few things in his back pocket that if he needs to, he can pull them out and say, okay, so you're not playing ball the way you said you would. You're dealing in bad faith and you're hurting America. So now we're going to go this route. It's probably the case that he has a number of those cards ready to be pulled as he needs to. And in one sense, it's, even though in the short term it feels like this will hurt Canadians, the extra spending and the tariffs feels like, oh, it's bad for us. We're being bullied by the Americans. It may be the case that in the long run, the short-term discomfort is actually better for us. And it may be that Canada, who has elected people who are unable and unwilling to take care of our country, it looks like Big Brother to the South may have stepped in and said, you guys can't take care of yourselves. Truly, you can't. Your leaders are all corrupt and they're all Marxists. So maybe I'm gonna deploy a little tough love and help you guys sort yourself together. Maybe that's the end result of this. Maybe the end result is short-term discomfort, but because he's thinking about America first, it actually ends up being better for us in the long run. That might, in fact, be the case. I mean, only time's going to tell, but it may be better for us that he's wielding the stick, as you said, in the short term. But we're going to see.
Yeah. I mean, this is, the stuff that Cooper's talking about is like insane, right? We're talking about like a global crime syndicate. You can go on ChatGPT. I dare you, go on Grok, ChatGPT, type in the Vancouver model of money laundering. Just get it to tell you what it's about, wrap your head around it, and then ask how it is involved in the fentanyl crisis, and it'll lay it out for you. And it's shocking. We're literally talking about a worldwide crime syndicate who is basically helping create mass amounts of deadly drugs that flood nations and kill hundreds of thousands of people. That's what we're dealing with. And then very, very wealthy individuals make a ton of cash off of it and influence politics in Canada, in China, and across the world. And that's what we're dealing with. And that's realistically, if Cooper is right on this stuff, which I tend to think he is, our government's more or less turned a blind eye to. No wonder Donald Trump is hopping mad.
Well,
no wonder Homan wants these guys to shut down the borders. No wonder Rubio is questioning what, in fact, the government of Canada is doing when they will harass, a grandma for her handbag as she's crossing over Canada because they're worried that she went over $20 over her spending limit.
Yeah.
But then they're allowing this sort of criminal activity to take place. There's just a drastic incongruency.
I'm sure no one who's bringing in the fentanyl precursors had to fill out a Rive can during the COVID era. Probably not the case for them. And actually, Matt, it's probably worse than turning a blind eye because it looks like they're actually profiting from it. So they're not just turning a blind eye; they fully see what's happening, and they're doing nothing because of how they benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, have you heard our elected officials come out and say this is an emergency problem? It's so bad, in fact, that this money laundering scheme bears the name of one of our largest cities in Canada, Vancouver. Money for scheme for money laundering. This is epidemic emergency levels. We're going to do everything that we can as a government.
Well, no, here's what they'd have to do.
Have you heard that?
Well, no, because they haven't brought out the bouncy castles yet. Once they bring out
and the Team Canada jerseys.
Once they have the bouncy castles and they're making French toast in the middle of the fentanyl production warehouses, then they'll invoke
Measures Act.
the War Measures Act. There's not enough Tim Hortons coffee yet. More Tim Hortons coffee, and then they'll step in. I'm not entirely sure how we can. I mean, other than seeking to inform you and to approach this from a biblical perspective and to honestly assess it with sober-mindedness, which you're trying to do, which I don't think you're going to find a ton of other places. Other than doing that, in terms of takeaways, I mean, I guess I can say this is one of the reasons why we encourage you strongly to not be as dependent or reliant upon the same apparatus that is doing nothing and profiting from a system that's destroying both us and our neighbors to the south. And so you need to take seriously responsibility for your own family, for your wealth, for your health, for your well-being, your kids' education. You need to stop leaning into an apparatus that is bent on destroying your lives and the worldview and values and principles that we hold dear upon which our nation was founded. So you need to separate yourself from dependence and reliance upon the state, and you need to be more responsible with everything that you have and everything that the Lord has given you. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a whole lot of hurt when they either turn on you or when things do not go well and you're so closely tied to them for your security and your well-being that you're just going to fall over and hit the ground. So individual responsibility and intentional relationships with like-minded people are the way that we live and thrive in the midst of a very corrupt state that apparently just seems to be doing the bidding of their Chinese overlords. That's the situation. Yeah. All you can do is be responsible with what the Lord has given you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and fight for the return of the rule of higher law and the supremacy of God, because that will certainly, that commitment, a real commitment, not an apostate, taking the Lord's name in vain, but a real commitment to that will root out a lot of this corruption. Mm-hmm. I can't help but think that we really need, from my perspective, Andrew, and I'm sure you agree with this. We need to make Canada great again. So go over to MEGA, MEHGA, ga.ca and go check out our toques, our hats. We actually have toques over there now. You can check it out. It's pretty dope. If I can actually figure out how to show you the window, that would be sick, but I don't think I can. Anyways, it's go over mehga.ca, get some hats, get some toques. Yep. These are the 2 ones behind here, because this is a protest symbol. This is a symbol of protest. This is how you start organic movements, and this is how you give a plight. You don't have to give the bird when you got one of these, because this does it for you.
You don't have to wave an F. Trudeau flag. You can have the red hat.
Yeah, that probably says more, right? This is put you on the terrorist the watch list, but it says a good positive message instead of something.
So like just quick cleanup before we go.
Yeah,
ldcanada.substack.com. Sign up.
Check it out
for our email list. Subscribe so you can get all of our great content. Become a paid subscriber so you can unlock some of the really good new content we'll be adding soon. Health and Liberty at proton.me to find out more about Plexus and talk to a representative and take advantage of their great products. Info at rocklinc.com to connect with our friends over at Rocklinc. And then mission.bullbitcoin.com/dispatch to go get some Bitcoin, talk to the experts there. That's all for tonight, folks.
Indeed. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for checking us out. If you like what we do, you know what to do. Also, go over, if you do like YouTube, we are back on YouTube. We have to be a little bit cautious with what we post over there. But yeah, go check us out over there. We are posting some good content there as well. We want to build that channel. So just give us a subscribe, like our content over there. We really appreciate all the support, all the engagement on our socials. It's skyrocketed this year. So we're super appreciative of all that. We love that you tune in week in, week out, and we just would just ask you to kindly go over to ldcanada.substack.com, and if you can support what we do, if you like what we do, we would encourage you to do that. But until next time, Galatians 5:1. God bless everybody.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us and all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.